Joining us now, Democratic Senator Andy Kim of the great state of New Jersey.
Welcome.
Well,
yeah.
Hey. Senator, what do you think about all this? Let's start with Hegseth and Senator Kelly.
Yeah, well, look, I think, I was reading the letter that they sent to my colleague, Senator Kelly. The fact that they were citing lines that he had said and finding concern. And one of the lines was that Mark Kelly said that he would always defend the Constitution. The fact that they even put that in the letter and highlighted that as something that was offensive to them or concerned to them, I think it shows that, what they demand here is not just loyalty to Donald Trump, but fealty to Donald Trump. And they weren't just trying to send a message to my colleague, Mark Kelly. They were trying to use him as an example to scare all the service members right now, trying to make an example. Mark saying, if we can do this to a U.S. senator, imagine what we can do to you right now. And that's what they're really trying to send that message about, which I just find to be so offensive, treating our service members in that way.
Well, it does put them in a very difficult position, and it does make it very difficult for members of your body to sort of navigate a space where at any moment a president can come after you when you're standing talking about the Constitution, right? Mm-hmm. Or standing talking about a public policy that is of import to the American people. So it still brings me back to the point. How do we help a Mark Kelly from not happening again? How do we begin to stem the flow? We were talking about this with our last guest about a president who just acts the way he wants to act, and there's no real recourse for the rest of us. What do? I mean, Hegseth is saying all this stuff. They're going forward with the action in the Pentagon. What are we left to do? Just wait till an outcome and shake our heads?
Yeah, no, it's so alarming, especially when we're sitting here, just down the street from the U.S. Capitol on the eve of the January 6th anniversary. And, I think about that 5 years ago, and I think about how tomorrow I know exactly what my Republican colleagues are going to do, which is absolutely nothing. Right. They're going to do nothing to mark the occasion, nothing to thank our Capitol police officers who literally saved our lives.
They still haven't put up the plaque.
No, they don't even know where it is. Right. They buried it with the, Raiders of the Lost Ark in some warehouse somewhere. But look, that's the problem. If they're not even, if colleagues are not even willing to step up and just say what happened at the Capitol 5 years ago, what we see is just a real cowardice, a lack of courage, and it's a fear that Donald Trump can ruin any of their careers with just one social media post. And unfortunately, that's true. And that's where they're weighing it. They're weighing their own careers ahead of doing what's right. And I just find that offensive because, look, the job is good, but it's not that good, where, you're going to betray your own values at a very core element to it all.
What you were saying is also interesting, given the conversation that is happening right now on Capitol Hill about this administration's recent actions in Venezuela, especially given that the administration, of course, they didn't go to Congress for congressional approval. On top of that, they are speaking out of both sides of their mouth about who is actually going to be in charge of this transition, if it is, in fact, a transition inside Venezuela. I want to layer onto the fact that you had Secretary Noem on TV this weekend being asked, well, what happens to all of these Venezuelans who are already in the United States, who've now effectively become undocumented because of the lapse in temporary protected status? She says, well, you can still apply for asylum. Almost immediately, her agency walks that back. How can this administration, on one hand, say this regime is so awful and corrupt that we need to bring in U.S. forces in order to remove the head of Venezuela, and at the same time say to Venezuelans in this country who've come here seeking asylum, you got to head home?
And they're also saying that the legal justification for the operation was to support law enforcement efforts specific to Maduro. And then Trump saying, oh, well, we can take a second strike at any time, and maybe Cuba, maybe Greenland. We see how so much of that falls apart so quickly. And that's because if you ask the fundamental question, which is, what is the goal that they're trying to achieve, you realize that none of that is about democracy. None of that is about protecting people. None of that, honestly, is about American interests. It all goes back to Trump. And this is all goes back to Trump and supporting his, his supporters. That's why, over the last 72 hours, we've heard Trump use the word oil over and over and over again, because we see that what the goal actually is what I call mob boss tactics. He's using mob boss tactics. He's reducing our foreign policy to essentially an extortion foreign policy. And he's calling the Maduro regime narco-terrorists up and down, but yet he's willing to work with them now as long as he gets what he wants, as long as Donald Trump's in the take. And I think that that's what is hopefully apparent to the American people right now as they see just all this laid bare, as Trump is not trying to hide it. He's saying it out loud right now in terms of what his goal actually is. Every time Rubio or someone else tries to walk it back, he just goes, nope, actually, I run the place. I'm in charge.
Correct.
Yes.
Lindsey Graham we played the clip from Air Force One yesterday on their way back, and Lindsey Graham is saying, we had to do this. This was about the drugs. This was about everything. He's like, so this isn't about anything. This is American interest. And the president jumps in and is like, yeah, so the oil. Yeah. This is about the oil. Misinformation and disinformation is a very powerful tool, and I think in our fragmented media environment, it is actually frankly, more dangerous now than ever. What the American people believe about not just this operation, but what the president is saying about this operation, what it means for Americans to be true, I think colors a lot of things going down the line. Are you concerned about the role misinformation and disinformation can play here in the days and weeks to come? Because you're not concerned.
Oh, no, I'm absolutely concerned. Yeah, look, we see the disinformation right out of the gate. I saw and heard it with my own eyes. We had a briefing with Secretaries Rubio and Hegseth a couple weeks ago, and we heard directly out of their mouths that this is not about regime change. We're going after the drugs on these boats, and that's what this is about. And then all of a sudden we saw what happened just a few days ago. And every single senator was in that room, and they were lied to directly by the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense. And so I have a lot of concern, not just about what they're saying to the American people, but what they're saying to the American people's representatives in Congress. There's a reason why Trump is not seeking congressional approval, because he knows that the American people are not with him. They know that the American people are sick and tired of these endless wars that we've gone through. I worked in diplomacy. I served in Afghanistan. I worked in Iraq. I'm tired of this. The American people are tired of this. And so Trump, he's just going to say whatever he needs to get it. That's why he said, oh, yes, this is about law enforcement. Well, look, Department of Justice, Pam Bondi was not at the briefing talking about these operations. If it was about a law enforcement first operation, why wasn't she the main person?
She is over on Capitol Hill, though, briefing the Gang of Eight.
Yeah,
Stephen Miller was there, though. Maybe he had something to say.